Are you over 50 and love your rice but worry every time you see those blood sugar numbers climbing? Here's the thing that might surprise you. You don't have to give up rice completely. In fact, what if I told you there are 5 scientifically proven ways to keep enjoying rice while actually lowering your blood sugar response and boosting your gut health at the same time? I'm talking about simple modifications that take less than 5 minutes to implement, cost you nothing extra, and can reduce your post-meal glucose spike by up to 40%. These aren't complicated biohacks that require expensive supplements or equipment. These are kitchen-tested strategies that work specifically for people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. Now, before we dive in, let me be crystal clear. This is educational content based on peer-reviewed research, not medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you're managing diabetes or taking medications that affect blood sugar. But here's what we're going to cover in the next hour. First, I'll explain exactly why rice affects your blood sugar the way it does, and more importantly, how simple changes in the type you choose, the way you prepare it, and when you eat it can completely transform its impact on your body. We'll explore the fascinating science of resistant starch and how cooling and reheating rice can turn it into a prebiotic powerhouse that feeds your beneficial gut bacteria while lowering glucose absorption. Then we'll get into the practical stuff. I'll walk you through 5 specific hacks that you can start using today. We're talking about choosing the right type of rice, the cooling and reheating method that increases resistant starch by 300%, the 50-50 bowl strategy that balances your plate perfectly, the vinegar technique that can reduce blood sugar spikes by 25%, and finally, advanced preparation methods that can upgrade your rice into a genuine superfood. By the end of this presentation, you'll have a complete 7-day implementation plan that takes you from wherever you are now to confidently enjoying rice as part of a blood sugar-friendly, gut-healthy eating pattern. You'll know exactly what to buy at the grocery store, how to prep your rice for the week, and how to combine it with other foods for maximum benefit. Now, you might be thinking, I've heard that all carbs are bad for blood sugar, especially after 50. That's one of the biggest nutritional myths that's keeping people from foods that could actually help them. The truth is, it's not about the carbohydrates themselves. It's about the type, the preparation, the combination, and the timing. Rice can be part of a healthy, blood sugar-stable diet when you know these secrets. Let me start with a story that illustrates this perfectly. I recently worked with Maria, a 62-year-old grandmother who had been told by her doctor that her pre-diabetic numbers meant she needed to cut out rice entirely. This was devastating for her because rice had been a staple in her family meals for decades. She felt like she was losing part of her cultural connection to food. But instead of eliminating rice, we applied these 5 hacks. Within 3 weeks, her post-meal blood sugar readings were consistently 20 to 30 points lower than when she was eating regular white rice prepared the traditional way. More importantly, her digestive health improved dramatically. She went from feeling bloated and sluggish after meals to feeling energized and satisfied. Her doctor was amazed at her improvement and gave her the green light to continue with her modified rice approach. This is the power of understanding food science, instead of just following blanket restrictions. When you know how to work with your food instead of against it, you can enjoy the meals you love while supporting your health goals. So let's dive into the science first, because when you understand why these hacks work, you'll be much more likely to stick with them long-term. Rice is primarily composed of starch, which is a complex carbohydrate made up of 2 main components, amylose and amylopectin. Think of amylose as the slow-release component and amylopectin as the fast-release component. Different types of rice have different ratios of these 2 starches, and this is the first key to controlling your blood sugar response. Most regular, white rice is high in amylopectin, which breaks down quickly into glucose, causing those rapid spikes in blood sugar that you want to avoid. But certain varieties of rice are naturally higher in amylose, which digests much more slowly and creates a gentler, more sustained release of glucose into your bloodstream. But here's where it gets really interesting. When you cool cooked rice and then reheat it, you create something called resistant starch type 3, or RS3. This is starch that literally resists digestion in your small intestine and instead travels to your colon, where it acts like fiber, feeding your beneficial gut bacteria and producing short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate is incredibly important for people over 50 because it supports colon health, reduces inflammation, and actually helps improve insulin sensitivity. So by simply cooling and reheating your rice, you're not just lowering its glycemic impact, you're turning it into a prebiotic that actively supports your gut health and metabolic function. The research on this is fascinating. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that cooling and reheating rice can reduce its digestible starch content by up to 40%. Another study in the Journal of Nutritional Science showed that resistant starch consumption improved insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammatory markers in adults over 55. Now let's talk about the gut health connection, because this is where rice can actually become a health food instead of just a neutral carbohydrate. Your gut microbiome changes as you age, often becoming less diverse and less protective. By 50, many people have already experienced decades of antibiotic use, processed food consumption, and stress, all of which can compromise gut health. But resistant starch is like fertilizer for your beneficial bacteria. When these bacteria ferment resistant starch, they produce butyrate, which is the preferred fuel for your colon cells. Butyrate also helps tighten the connections between intestinal cells, reducing intestinal permeability, which is linked to inflammation and insulin resistance. This is why the rice hacks we're going to discuss aren't just about lowering blood sugar in the moment. They're about creating a positive cycle where better gut health leads to better metabolic health, which leads to more stable blood sugar, which supports even better gut health over time. But before we get to the specific hacks, let me address some common concerns that people over 50 have about carbohydrates in general. First, there's the fear that eating any rice will cause weight gain. The truth is, when you prepare rice using these methods and combine it properly with protein and vegetables, it can actually support healthy weight management by increasing satiety and reducing cravings for processed foods later in the day. Second, there's the worry about portion sizes. Many people think they need to eat tiny amounts of rice to avoid blood sugar spikes. But when you use these preparation methods, you can actually eat satisfying portions without the dramatic glucose response. Third, there's confusion about timing. Some people avoid rice at dinner thinking it will disrupt sleep. But when prepared correctly and combined with the right foods, rice can actually support better sleep by providing the brain with steady glucose and supporting serotonin production. Now, let's get into the 5 specific hacks that will transform how rice affects your body. Hack number 1 is choosing the right type of rice for optimal blood sugar control. Not all rice is created equal when it comes to glycemic response. The key is understanding that the variety you choose makes a dramatic difference in how quickly and how high your blood sugar rises after eating. The glycemic index measures how quickly a food raises blood glucose compared to pure glucose. Regular white rice typically has a glycemic index between 70 and 90, which is considered high. But certain varieties can be as low as 50 to 60, which puts them in the moderate range and makes them much more suitable for blood sugar management. Your best choices are parboiled rice, basmati rice, and certain long-grain varieties that are naturally higher in amylose. Parboiled rice, also called converted rice, goes through a special steaming process before the hull is removed. This process actually moves nutrients from the hull into the grain and changes the starch structure in a way that slows digestion. Basmati rice, particularly aged basmati, Has a naturally high amylose content and a distinctive nutty flavor that many people prefer over regular white rice. The aging process actually increases the amylose content even further, making aged basmati one of the best choices for blood sugar control. If you can tolerate more fiber and have gradually increased your fiber intake, certain colored rice varieties, like red rice or black rice, can be excellent choices. These contain additional compounds called anthocyanins, which have been shown to help regulate blood sugar and provide antioxidant benefits. However, I want to be very specific about portion sizes that work well for people over 50. The key is consistency and measurement. A good starting portion is about half a cup of cooked rice, which is roughly the size of a cupped palm, or about 100 to 120 grams. This might seem small if you're used to restaurant portions, or the large servings that were common in past decades, but when you combine this amount of rice with the other components we'll discuss, it becomes part of a very satisfying and blood sugar-friendly meal. One important note about rice selection: avoid glutinous rice or sticky rice varieties, especially for dinner meals. These are extremely high in amylopectin and can cause significant blood sugar spikes even in small amounts. Save these for very occasional treats, and only when combined with plenty of protein and fiber. Here's a practical tip for shopping. When you're at the grocery store, look for rice that specifically says parboiled or converted on the package. For basmati, look for brands that mention aging, as this usually indicates higher amylose content. Don't be afraid to try different brands within these categories, as there can be subtle differences in texture and flavor that might appeal more to your palate. Now let's move to hack number 2, which is the cooling and reheating method that transforms rice into a resistant starch powerhouse. This is probably the most scientifically fascinating of all the hacks, because it literally changes the molecular structure of the rice in a way that benefits your health. When you cook rice, the starch granules swell and become easily digestible. But when you cool the cooked rice, some of those starches retrograde, meaning they form new crystalline structures that are resistant to digestion. Here's exactly how to do this safely and effectively. First, cook your rice using whatever method you prefer, whether that's on the stove top, in a rice cooker, or in the oven. The cooking method doesn't matter for creating resistant starch, so use whatever works best for your kitchen setup and preferences. Once the rice is fully cooked, the cooling process is critical. Spread the rice in a shallow container or baking dish so it cools quickly and evenly. Don't leave it sitting in the pot or rice cooker, as this can create food safety issues. You want to get the rice from cooking temperature to refrigerator temperature as quickly as possible. The rice needs to be cooled within 1 hour of cooking for food safety, and then it should be refrigerated for at least 12 hours, though 24 hours is even better for maximum resistant starch formation. During this time, the starch molecules are literally reorganizing themselves into forms that your digestive enzymes can't break down as easily. When you're ready to eat the rice, you can reheat it using whatever method you prefer. You can microwave it, steam it, or quickly sauté it in a pan with a little oil or broth. The key is to heat it until it's steaming hot throughout, which usually takes about 2 to 3 minutes in the microwave, or 5 to 7 minutes on the stovetop. Here's the remarkable thing. Even after reheating, the resistant starch remains largely intact. You're not losing the benefits by warming the rice back up. In fact, some research suggests that the reheating process might even create additional beneficial compounds. From a food safety perspective, cooled and reheated rice can be stored safely in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 days. Make sure to keep it at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and always reheat it thoroughly before eating. If the rice smells off or has a slimy texture, discard it immediately. One of the practical benefits of this method is that it actually makes meal prep much easier. You can cook a large batch of rice on Sunday, cool it properly, and then have individual portions ready to reheat throughout the week. This is especially helpful for people who want to maintain consistent meal timing, which is important for blood sugar management. The research on resistant starch and metabolic health is particularly relevant for people over 50. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that adults who consumed resistant starch daily for 12 weeks showed significant improvements in insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammatory markers. Another study specifically, looking at older adults, found that resistant starch consumption was associated with better gut health and more stable blood sugar patterns. But here's what makes this hack especially powerful. You're not just reducing the glycemic impact of the rice, you're actively feeding your beneficial gut bacteria. The bacteria that thrive on resistant starch produce butyrate, which has been called the gut health miracle molecule because of its wide-ranging benefits. Butyrate strengthens the intestinal barrier, reduces inflammation throughout the body, and may even have neuroprotective effects that could be important for brain health as we age. Some emerging research suggests that adequate butyrate production might be protective against age-related cognitive decline. Now let's move to hack number 3, which is the 50-50 bowl strategy that balances your plate for optimal blood sugar and satiety. This is where we move from just preparing rice differently to combining it strategically with other foods to create meals that are satisfying, nutritious, and blood sugar friendly. The principle is simple but powerful. Instead of making rice the main component of your meal, you make it one component of a balanced plate. Here's the formula. Half of your plate should be non-starchy vegetables and legumes, like beans, lentils, or chickpeas. The other half should be divided between your rice portion and a high-quality protein source. This creates a meal that's rich in fiber, protein, and nutrients, while keeping the rice portion at a level that won't cause blood sugar spikes. Let's break this down with specific measurements that work well for people over 50. Start with about half a cup of cooked rice, as we discussed in hack number 1. Then add half to 1 cup of cooked legumes like black beans, kidney beans, lentils, or chickpeas. These provide both protein and fiber, and they're particularly good at slowing down glucose absorption. For non-starchy vegetables, aim for 1 to 2 cups of foods like broccoli, spinach, bell peppers, zucchini, cauliflower, or any leafy greens. These can be raw in a salad, lightly steamed, roasted, or sautéed with herbs and spices. Finally, add a palm-sized portion of protein, which could be eggs, chicken, fish, tofu, or tempeh. This usually works out to about 3 to 4 ounces, or roughly 20 to 30 grams of protein. The magic of this combination is in how these different foods work together to moderate blood sugar response. The fiber from the vegetables and legumes slows down digestion and glucose absorption. The protein helps trigger hormones that promote satiety and help regulate blood sugar. And the rice provides satisfying carbohydrates and, if you've used the cooling and reheating method, beneficial resistant starch. This approach also ensures that you're getting a wide variety of nutrients in each meal. The vegetables provide vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. The legumes provide additional protein, fiber, and important nutrients like folate and magnesium. The rice provides energy and, when prepared correctly, supports gut health. One of the benefits of this approach for people over 50 is that it addresses multiple nutritional needs simultaneously. As we age, our protein requirements actually increase to help maintain muscle mass, but many older adults don't get enough protein. By making protein a key component of every rice-containing meal, you're supporting muscle health while managing blood sugar. The fiber content of these meals is also important for digestive health, which can become more challenging with age. The combination of fiber from vegetables, legumes, and resistant starch from properly prepared rice creates an ideal environment for beneficial gut bacteria. Here are some practical examples of how this might look in real meals. For lunch, you might have a bowl with half a cup of cooled and reheated basmati rice, half a cup of black beans seasoned with cumin and lime, a large handful of spinach, some diced tomatoes and peppers, and a hard-boiled egg or some grilled chicken. For dinner, you might have the same amount of rice with roasted vegetables like zucchini, bell peppers, and onions, some white beans seasoned with herbs, and a piece of baked salmon or some marinated tofu. The beauty of this system is its flexibility. You can use whatever vegetables are in season or on sale, whatever legumes you prefer or have on hand, and whatever protein sources fit your dietary preferences and budget. One important note about introducing legumes. If you're not used to eating beans, lentils, or chickpeas regularly, increase your intake gradually to avoid digestive discomfort. Start with smaller portions and make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Your gut bacteria will adapt over time, and foods that might initially cause gas or bloating will become easier to digest. This gradual approach is especially important for people over 50, as our digestive systems can become more sensitive with age. But the long-term benefits of including legumes in your diet are substantial. They're associated with better heart health, more stable blood sugar, improved digestive health, and even longevity. Now let's move to hack number 4, which involves using vinegar and strategic eating order to further reduce blood sugar spikes. This hack is based on fascinating research showing that certain acids can significantly blunt the glycemic response to carbohydrate-rich meals. The mechanism involves slowing gastric emptying and reducing the activity of enzymes that break down starch into glucose. The most studied acid for this purpose is acetic acid, which is found in vinegar. Studies have shown that consuming 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinegar before or with a meal can reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes by 20 to 30%. This effect is particularly pronounced with meals that contain starchy foods like rice. Here's how to implement this safely and palatably. The key is dilution and timing. Never consume vinegar straight, as it can damage tooth enamel and irritate your digestive system. Instead, dilute 1 to 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar or rice vinegar in a large glass of water and drink it about 10 to 15 minutes before your meal. Alternatively, you can incorporate vinegar into your meal by using it in salad dressings, marinades, or as a seasoning for your rice and vegetables. Rice vinegar is particularly good for this because it has a milder flavor that complements rice dishes well. If you find vinegar too harsh or have digestive sensitivity, lemon juice can provide similar benefits. The citric acid in lemon juice works through similar mechanisms to acetic acid, though the effect may be somewhat less pronounced. The second part of this hack involves the order in which you eat your food. Research has shown that eating protein and vegetables before consuming starchy foods can significantly reduce the blood sugar response to the entire meal. This works by slowing gastric emptying and triggering the release of hormones that help regulate blood sugar. Here's the practical application. When you sit down to your 50-50 bowl, start by eating some of the vegetables and protein first. You don't have to finish them completely, but having several bites of these foods before you start eating the rice can make a meaningful difference in your post-meal glucose levels. This approach has additional benefits beyond blood sugar control. Starting your meal with vegetables and protein tends to increase satiety, which means you're likely to feel satisfied with appropriate portions and less likely to overeat. This is particularly important for weight management, which becomes more challenging after 50 due to changes in metabolism and muscle mass. There are some important cautions to consider with the vinegar approach. If you have gastroesophageal, reflux disease, stomach ulcers, or other digestive issues, vinegar might exacerbate your symptoms. Start with very small amounts and pay attention to how your body responds. If you're taking medications for diabetes, particularly insulin or medications that increase insulin production, be extra careful with vinegar use and monitor your blood sugar closely. The blood sugar-lowering effect of vinegar combined with diabetes medications could potentially cause hypoglycemia. For most people over 50, however, this hack is safe and can be quite effective. The key is consistency and moderation. You don't need large amounts of vinegar to see benefits, and using it regularly with meals is more effective than using it occasionally. Some people find it helpful to prepare a vinegar drink in advance. You can mix apple cider vinegar with water and a small amount of honey or stevia. Add some fresh herbs like mint or basil, and keep it in the refrigerator for easy use before meals. Another practical approach is to always include a simple, vinegar-based salad with your rice meals. A salad with mixed greens, a tablespoon of olive oil, and a tablespoon of vinegar provides the acid benefits, while also contributing to the vegetable portion of your 50-50 bowl. The research on meal sequencing is particularly interesting for older adults. A study published in Diabetes Care found that eating protein and vegetables before carbohydrates reduced post-meal glucose levels by almost 30% in people with type 2 diabetes. Similar studies in people with prediabetes and normal glucose tolerance have shown benefits as well. This approach also aligns with traditional eating patterns from cultures known for longevity and good metabolic health. In many Mediterranean and Asian cuisines, meals naturally start with vegetables, soups, or small protein dishes before the main starchy components are served. Now let's move to our fifth and final hack, which involves upgrading your rice through germination and strategic grain mixing. This hack takes rice from being a simple carbohydrate source to being a more nutritionally dense, functionally beneficial food. It requires a bit more planning and preparation, but the results can be quite remarkable in terms of both nutritional value and blood sugar impact. Rice germination is a process where you soak rice grains until they just begin to sprout. Then, cook them normally. This process activates enzymes within the rice grain that break down some of the starch and increase the availability of nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. Here's how to do this safely at home. Start with brown rice, as it still has the germ intact, which is necessary for sprouting. Rinse the rice thoroughly, then place it in a bowl and cover with filtered water by about 2 inches. Cover the bowl with a clean kitchen towel and let it sit at room temperature for 12 to 24 hours. During this time, you should see small white shoots beginning to emerge from some of the grains. This indicates that the germination process has begun. Once you see these shoots, drain the rice, rinse it thoroughly, and cook it as you normally would, though you may need to add a bit more water and cook it slightly longer than regular rice. The benefits of germinated rice include increased levels of gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, which has calming properties and may help with stress management and sleep quality. The germination process also increases the availability of nutrients like vitamin E, niacin, and lysine, and creates a rice with a lower glycemic index and higher fiber content. If germination seems too complicated or time-consuming, the second part of this hack involves mixing rice with other grains and legumes during the cooking process. This is simpler, but still provides significant nutritional and metabolic benefits. One effective combination is to replace 25 to 50% of your rice with cooked lentils, chickpeas, or other legumes. You can do this by cooking the legumes separately and then mixing them with your rice, or by adding pre-cooked canned legumes to your rice during the last few minutes of cooking. Another approach is to mix rice with other grains like quinoa, barley, or bulgur. These grains have different starch structures and fiber contents that can help moderate the overall glycemic response of the dish. Barley is particularly beneficial because it contains beta-glucan, a type of soluble fiber that's been shown to help regulate blood sugar and cholesterol levels. A simple formula for grain mixing is to use 1/3 rice, 1/3 legumes, and 1/3 other grains or vegetables. This creates a dish that's much more nutritionally complete than rice alone and has a significantly lower glycemic impact. For people over 50, these mixed grain dishes offer several advantages. They provide more complete protein when rice and legumes are combined. They offer more diverse fiber types for better digestive health, and they provide a wider array of vitamins and minerals than rice alone. The texture and flavor of these mixed Dishes can also be more interesting and satisfying than plain rice. Many people find that they feel fuller and more satisfied after eating these mixed grain dishes, which can help with portion control and overall calorie management. Here are some specific combinations that work well. Try mixing basmati rice with red lentils and a small amount of bulgur, seasoned with turmeric, cumin, and fresh herbs. Or combine parboiled rice with black beans and quinoa, seasoned with lime, cilantro, and a touch of chili pepper. Another excellent combination is rice with chickpeas and barley, seasoned with Mediterranean herbs like oregano, basil, and garlic. This combination provides protein, fiber, and beta-glucan all in one dish. When preparing these mixed dishes, keep in mind that different grains and legumes have different cooking times. You might need to start some ingredients earlier than others, or use pre-cooked legumes and grains to simplify the process. From a meal prep perspective, these mixed grain dishes often keep better than plain rice and can be even more flavorful when reheated. They also work well cold in salad-style preparations, which can be refreshing during warmer weather. The research on grain and legume combinations is particularly relevant for aging populations. Studies have shown that people who regularly consume mixed grain and legume dishes have better overall nutrient status, more stable blood sugar patterns, and often better cardiovascular health markers. These combinations also provide prebiotic fibers that support gut health in ways that rice alone cannot. The diversity of fiber types feeds different species of beneficial gut bacteria, promoting a more diverse and resilient microbiome. Now that we've covered all 5 hacks, let me give you a practical framework for implementing them in your daily life. The key is to start gradually and build these habits systematically rather than trying to change everything at once. Week 1 should focus on rice selection and portion control. Switch to parboiled rice or basmati rice and measure your portions to about half a cup of cooked rice per meal. This gives you time to adjust to the new flavors and textures while establishing appropriate portion awareness. Week 2, add the cooling and reheating method. Cook larger batches of rice, cool them properly, and practice reheating individual portions. This week is about establishing the meal prep routine that will make the other hacks much easier to maintain. Week 3, implement the 50-50 bowl strategy. Focus on adding legumes and vegetables to your rice meals in the proportions we discussed. This is where you'll probably notice the biggest difference in how satisfied you feel after eating and how stable your energy levels are throughout the day. Week 4, add the vinegar and eating order strategies. Start incorporating diluted vinegar before meals, and practice eating your vegetables and protein before your rice. Pay attention to how these changes affect your post-meal energy levels and any changes in cravings or hunger patterns. By week 5 and beyond, you can start experimenting with germination and grain mixing if you're interested in these more advanced techniques. By this point, the basic habits should be well established, making it easier to add these refinements. Throughout this implementation process, keep track of how you feel. Many people notice improvements in energy levels, digestive comfort, and overall well-being within the first 2 to 3 weeks of implementing these changes. If you have a blood glucose meter, you might want to test your post-meal blood sugar levels to see the objective improvements these hacks can provide. It's also worth noting that these changes often have benefits beyond blood sugar control. Many people report better sleep quality, more stable moods, improved digestive regularity, and even better skin health when they implement these rice preparation and combination strategies. Let me share a few complete meal examples that incorporate multiple hacks so you can see how this all comes together in practice. Meal Example 1. Prepare basmati rice using the cooling and reheating method. Create a bowl with half a cup of the reheated rice, half a cup of seasoned black beans, sautéed bell peppers and onions, a handful of fresh spinach, and a poached egg. Dress the vegetables with olive oil and rice vinegar, and eat the vegetables and egg first, followed by the rice and bean mixture. Meal example 2. Use a mixture of parboiled rice and red lentils, cooked together and then cooled and reheated. Serve with roasted vegetables like zucchini, eggplant, and tomatoes. Add some fresh herbs and a protein like grilled chicken or baked tofu. Start the meal with a small salad dressed with apple cider vinegar and olive oil. Meal example 3. Germinated brown rice mixed with chickpeas and a small amount of quinoa, served with steamed broccoli and carrots, and accompanied by baked salmon. Begin the meal with some of the vegetables and salmon before eating the grain mixture. These meals provide complete nutrition while implementing multiple blood sugar management strategies simultaneously. They're satisfying, flavorful, and sustainable for long-term eating patterns. Now let's address some common questions and concerns that people have when implementing these strategies. First, what about weight management? Some people worry that eating rice, even prepared this way, will lead to weight gain. The research actually suggests the opposite. When rice is prepared and combined using these methods, it tends to increase satiety and reduce overall calorie intake throughout the day. The increased fiber and protein content of these meals helps regulate appetite hormones and reduces cravings for processed snacks and sweets. Second, what about digestive sensitivity? Some people experience gas or bloating when they first increase their intake of legumes and fiber-rich foods. This is normal and usually resolves within a few weeks as your gut bacteria adapt. Start with smaller portions of legumes and increase gradually. Make sure you're drinking adequate water, and consider adding digestive spices like ginger, fennel, or cumin to your meals. Third, how do these strategies work for people with diabetes who are taking medication? If you're taking diabetes medications, especially insulin or medications that increase insulin production, you should monitor your blood sugar more closely when implementing these strategies. The blood sugar lowering effects of these hacks could potentially enhance the effects of your medications. Work with your healthcare provider to adjust your medication doses if necessary. Fourth, what about cost considerations? Some people worry that buying different types of rice and adding more vegetables and legumes to meals will be expensive. In reality, legumes are among the most economical protein sources available, and when you're eating appropriate portions of rice combined with these other foods, you're likely to find that your overall food costs remain stable or even decrease. Fifth, how do these strategies affect meal timing and frequency? Many people find that meals prepared using these methods are more satisfying and keep them full longer, which can naturally lead to eating fewer snacks between meals. Some people find they naturally transition to eating 3 substantial meals per day rather than frequent smaller meals. Let's also talk about some advanced considerations for people who want to optimize these strategies even further. Spice and herb additions can provide additional blood sugar benefits. Turmeric contains curcumin, which has anti-inflammatory properties and may help improve insulin sensitivity. Cinnamon has been shown in some studies to help improve glucose metabolism. Fenugreek seeds, common in Indian cuisine, contain compounds that may help slow glucose absorption. Timing of rice consumption within your day can also matter. Some people find that they tolerate rice better at lunch than at dinner, as their glucose tolerance tends to be higher earlier in the day. Others find that having rice in the evening helps them sleep better, possibly due to the calming effects of the amino acid tryptophan and the steady glucose supply to the brain. Hydration is another factor that can affect how well these strategies work. Proper hydration is important for optimal digestion and glucose metabolism. Many people over 50 don't drink adequate water, which can affect both blood sugar control and digestive health. Exercise timing in relation to rice consumption can also be optimized. A short walk after meals that contain rice can help improve glucose uptake by muscles and reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. Even 10 to 15 minutes of gentle walking can be beneficial. Now let's talk about troubleshooting common challenges that people encounter when implementing these strategies. Challenge 1. I don't like the texture of cooled and reheated rice. Some people find that the texture of rice changes when it's cooled and reheated, becoming slightly firmer or different in mouthfeel. This is normal and is actually part of the resistant starch formation process. If you find the texture too firm, try adding a small amount of broth or water when reheating. You can also try different rice varieties, as some respond better to the cooling and reheating process than others. Challenge 2. I don't have time for meal prep. The cooling and reheating method does require some advanced planning, but it can actually save time in the long run. Consider cooking rice in larger batches on weekends and portioning it into individual containers. Many people find that having pre-prepared rice available makes weekday meal preparation faster and easier. Challenge 3. My family doesn't like legumes. If you're cooking for others who aren't enthusiastic about beans and lentils, start by incorporating them in small amounts or in forms that blend well with other flavors. Lentils can be added to rice during cooking in small amounts without dramatically changing the texture or flavor. You can also try different types of legumes, as some are milder in flavor than others. Challenge 4. I forget to use vinegar before meals. Consistency is key for the vinegar hack to be effective. Some people find it helpful to prepare a large batch of diluted vinegar with water and flavorings and keep it in the refrigerator for easy use. Others prefer to incorporate vinegar into their meals through salad dressings or marinades rather than drinking it separately. Challenge 5. I'm not sure if these changes are working. The benefits of these strategies can be subtle at first, especially if you don't have a way to measure blood sugar directly. Pay attention to other indicators like energy levels after meals, cravings between meals, sleep quality, and digestive comfort. Many people notice these improvements before they see changes in lab values or weight. Let me also address some of the latest research that's relevant to these strategies. Recent studies have shown that the gut microbiome changes that occur with resistant starch consumption can have effects beyond digestion and blood sugar control. Emerging research suggests that a healthy gut microbiome, supported by adequate resistant starch intake, may be protective against age-related cognitive decline and may support immune system function. There's also growing evidence that the timing of carbohydrate consumption may be important for circadian rhythm regulation. Some research suggests that consuming complex carbohydrates like properly prepared rice earlier in the day may support better sleep patterns and metabolic health. Studies on the Mediterranean diet and other longevity-associated eating patterns consistently show that people who live longest and healthiest lives include whole grains and legumes as regular parts of their diets, but they typically consume them in combination with vegetables, healthy fats, and moderate amounts of protein, much like the 50-50 bowl approach we've discussed. Research on aging and protein requirements has also evolved, with newer guidelines, suggesting that people over 50 may need more protein than previously thought to maintain muscle mass and metabolic health. The combination approach we've discussed, which includes protein with every rice-containing meal, aligns well with these updated recommendations. There's also fascinating new research on the role of meal timing and eating patterns in healthy aging. Studies suggest that having consistent meal times and avoiding late-night eating may be as important as what you eat for maintaining stable blood sugar and supporting healthy aging processes. Now let's talk about seasonal adaptations and how to modify these strategies throughout the year. During warmer months, cold rice salads using the cooling method can be particularly appealing and refreshing. You can prepare rice, cool it completely, and serve it cold with fresh vegetables, herbs, and a vinegar-based dressing. This approach still provides all the resistant starch benefits while being more suitable for hot weather. In winter, warming spices like ginger, cinnamon, and turmeric can be added to rice dishes to provide comfort and additional health benefits. Hearty combinations with root vegetables and warming legumes like split peas or kidney beans can be satisfying and nourishing during colder months. Spring is an excellent time to incorporate fresh, tender vegetables and herbs into your 50-50 bowls. Young greens, asparagus, and fresh herbs can add variety and additional nutrients to your rice-based meals. Fall offers opportunities to include seasonal vegetables like squash, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower in your rice combinations. These vegetables are often rich in nutrients that support immune system function during the transition to colder weather. Let's also discuss how to adapt these strategies for different cultural food preferences and dietary restrictions. For people who follow vegetarian or vegan eating patterns, the combination of rice with legumes provides complete protein and works particularly well with these dietary approaches. The addition of nuts, seeds, and a variety of vegetables can provide all essential nutrients while maintaining the blood sugar benefits we've discussed. For people who need to follow gluten-free diets, rice is naturally gluten-free, making these strategies particularly valuable. However, be careful when adding other grains to ensure they're also gluten-free. Quinoa, certified gluten-free oats, and amaranth are good options for grain mixing. For people with kidney disease or other conditions that require protein restriction, these strategies can still be beneficial, but the protein portions should be adjusted according to medical recommendations. Focus more heavily on the vegetable components and work with a registered dietitian to ensure nutritional adequacy. For people taking blood-thinning medications, be aware that large amounts of leafy green vegetables can affect medication effectiveness due to their vitamin K content. This doesn't mean you can't include these vegetables, but consistency in intake is important, and you should discuss any major dietary changes with your healthcare provider. Now let's explore some advanced meal planning strategies that can help you maintain these habits long-term. Batch cooking is essential for success with these methods. Consider dedicating a few hours on weekends to preparing large quantities of rice using the cooling method, cooking various legumes, and preparing vegetables that can be quickly assembled into meals throughout the week. Freezing portions of cooled rice can extend your meal prep capabilities. Properly cooled rice can be frozen in individual portions and reheated directly from frozen, maintaining its resistant starch properties. This allows you to always have properly prepared rice available, even when you haven't had time for weekly meal prep. Creating a rotation of flavor profiles can prevent boredom with these eating patterns. Consider developing a Mediterranean week with herbs like oregano and basil, an Asian-inspired week with ginger and sesame flavors, a Mexican-influenced week with cumin and lime, and an Indian-inspired week with turmeric and other warming spices. Shopping strategies can also support long-term success. Keep a well-stocked pantry with various types of rice, dried and canned legumes, vinegars, and spices. This allows you to create satisfying meals even when fresh ingredients are limited. Consider joining or creating a cooking group with friends or neighbors who are interested in healthy aging nutrition. Sharing meal prep tasks and trying new recipes together can make these dietary changes more enjoyable and sustainable. Let's address some specific health conditions and how these rice strategies might be adapted or modified. For people with inflammatory bowel disease or other digestive conditions, the increased fiber from legumes and vegetables might need to be introduced very gradually. Some people with these conditions do better with well-cooked vegetables and may need to start with smaller amounts of resistant starch to avoid digestive discomfort. For people with gastroparesis or delayed gastric emptying, the fiber and resistant starch in these meals might be beneficial for blood sugar control, but portion sizes may need to be smaller and more frequent. The vinegar hack might be particularly helpful for people with this condition, as it can help slow gastric emptying in a controlled way. For people with chronic kidney disease, the potassium content in legumes and certain vegetables may need to be monitored. However, many people with early-stage kidney disease can still benefit from these strategies with appropriate modifications and medical supervision. For people with heart disease, these strategies align well with heart-healthy eating patterns. The increased fiber, potassium, and magnesium from legumes and vegetables, combined with the blood sugar stability, can support cardiovascular health. Now let's talk about how to evaluate whether these strategies are working for you personally. Subjective measures include energy levels throughout the day, hunger and satiety patterns, cravings for sweets or processed foods, sleep quality, digestive comfort, and overall mood stability. Many people notice improvements in these areas within 2 to 4 weeks of implementing these changes consistently. If you have access to blood glucose monitoring, you can track your post-meal blood sugar levels to see objective improvements. Take readings before eating and 1 to 2 hours after eating to see how these modifications affect your glucose response. Other lab markers that might improve over time include hemoglobin A1C, which reflects average blood sugar over the previous 2 to 3 months, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, and lipid profiles including triglycerides and HDL cholesterol. Weight changes, if any, tend to be gradual with these approaches. Many people experience improved body composition, meaning they may maintain stable weight while gaining muscle and losing fat, especially if they're also incorporating appropriate physical activity. Digestive markers like bowel movement frequency and consistency often improve as the gut microbiome adapts to the increased fiber and resistant starch. This may take several weeks to months to fully stabilize. Let's also discuss some common myths and misconceptions about rice and blood sugar that these strategies help clarify. Myth 1. All rice is bad for blood sugar. As we've seen, the type of rice, preparation method, portion size, and food combinations make enormous differences in glycemic response. Properly prepared and combined rice can be part of a blood sugar-friendly eating pattern. Myth 2. Brown rice is always better than white rice for blood sugar. While brown rice does contain more fiber and nutrients, some white rice varieties like basmati or parboiled rice can actually have lower glycemic responses than certain brown rice varieties. The preparation method and food combinations matter more than the color of the rice. Myth 3. You have to eliminate carbohydrates to control blood sugar. Research consistently shows that the quality, preparation, and combination of carbohydrates matter much more than complete elimination. In fact, very low carbohydrate diets can be difficult to maintain long-term and may not be appropriate for everyone. Myth 4. Resistant starch supplements are just as good as food sources. While resistant starch supplements can provide some benefits, food sources like properly prepared rice provide resistant starch along with other nutrients and compounds that work synergistically for health benefits. Myth 5. These strategies are too complicated for everyday use. While there is a learning curve, most people find that these methods become routine within a few weeks and can actually simplify meal planning once the habits are established. As we near the end of our comprehensive discussion, let me provide you with some final practical tools and resources for implementing these strategies successfully. Create a simple meal planning template that includes spaces for your rice portion, legume portion, vegetable portions, and protein portion. This visual guide can help you maintain the 50-50 bowl proportions until they become automatic. Develop a shopping list template that includes the rice varieties, legumes, vegetables, and other ingredients you'll need to stock your kitchen for success with these methods. Having this list readily available makes grocery shopping more efficient and ensures you always have the ingredients needed for healthy rice-based meals. Consider keeping a simple food and symptom diary for the first few weeks as you implement these changes. Note what you eat, how you feel after meals, your energy levels, and any digestive symptoms. This can help you identify which modifications work best for your individual physiology. Find reliable sources for ongoing nutrition education. The science of nutrition and metabolism continues to evolve, and staying informed can help you refine and improve your eating patterns over time. Look for information from registered dietitians, certified diabetes educators, and reputable medical institutions. Connect with others who are working on similar health goals, whether through online communities, local groups, or friends and family members. Having social support can significantly improve your success with dietary changes. Now let me leave you with a 7-day implementation plan that takes you from wherever you are now to confidently using all 5 rice hacks. Day 1. Purchase parboiled or basmati rice and measure out half-cup portions of cooked rice for your meals. Focus only on portion control and rice variety selection. Day 2. Cook a larger batch of rice, cool it properly, and practice reheating individual portions. Notice any differences in texture or flavor compared to freshly cooked rice. Day 3. Begin adding legumes to your rice meals. Start with canned beans or lentils if you don't have time to cook dried ones. Aim for equal portions of rice and legumes. Day 4. Increase your vegetable intake with rice meals. Try to fill half your plate with non-starchy vegetables, either raw in salads, steamed, or sautéed. Day 5. Add a protein source to make complete 50-50 bowls. Experiment with different proteins to find combinations you enjoy. Day 6. Try the vinegar hack. Start with a small amount of diluted vinegar before one meal, and pay attention to how you feel afterward. Day 7. Practice eating your vegetables and protein before your rice and legumes. Notice whether this affects your satiety or energy levels. By the end of this week, you'll have experienced all 5 hacks individually. The following week, you can begin combining multiple hacks in single meals, and by the 3rd week, these strategies should start feeling natural and sustainable. Remember that this is a gradual process, and it's normal to have some meals that work better than others as you're learning. The goal is progress, not perfection, and even implementing some of these strategies some of the time is beneficial for your health. The science is clear that these approaches can significantly improve blood sugar control, support gut health, and contribute to healthy aging. The practical experience of thousands of people who have implemented these strategies confirms that they're sustainable and effective in real-world settings. Most importantly, these strategies don't require you to give up foods you enjoy or follow restrictive eating patterns that are difficult to maintain. Instead, they show you how to modify and combine familiar foods in ways that support your health goals while maintaining eating satisfaction and cultural food connections. As you embark on implementing these 5 rice hacks, remember that small, consistent changes often lead to the most sustainable and significant long-term benefits. Your body will adapt to these new eating patterns, and what might seem like conscious effort initially will become natural, automatic, healthy habits. The investment you make in learning and implementing these strategies now can pay dividends in terms of energy, health, and quality of life for years to come. At 50, 60, 70, and beyond, you can continue to enjoy rice as part of a health-promoting eating pattern that supports stable blood sugar, optimal gut health, and successful aging. Take these evidence-based strategies, adapt them to your personal preferences and lifestyle, and discover how simple modifications can transform ordinary rice into a powerful tool for health and longevity. Your future self will thank you for taking these steps today.